Shabbat Shalom. Good evening to those of you where it is evening. Good morning to those of you where it is morning. Some parts of the world it is morning. Shabbat Shalom to you. Shabbat Shalom to the greetings to the 12 tribes of the lineage of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the children of Israel that are scattered into the four corners of the earth into captivity. Greetings to you. Greetings to you who are not of the bloodline of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but seek to serve the only true God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who has only shown himself to the children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Those of you seeking to serve him, greetings to you. Shabbat Shalom, fam. Greetings to all of those who are disgusted with religion, but want to see changes, like to see righteousness reign on this planet. Want to see an end of corruption, an end of death, an end of disease on the planet Earth. Greetings to you. Today, we're going to continue by the grace of the Most High, our study in Daniel. We finished Daniel chapter 7 last weekend, and we're going to be going into Daniel chapter 8 today, a very pivotal chapter. Today, I would say, like the last time we studied in Daniel chapter 7, we looked at the little horn. And we saw the little horn became not only a political power of a nation, but also a religious power. And that this religious power would subdue the entire planet Earth. And that this religious power, this little horn, would persecute the true children of Israel. We saw that this little horn was the Vatican of Rome, that it came out of Rome. It was the Vatican of Rome, and the little horn represented the office of the Vatican called the papacy. And so we saw also that this power is what we have now today called Christianity, and that this power is the founder of it and the controller of all Christianity, as well as all other religions on the planet, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. And so today in chapter 8, it goes into further detail about this little horn. It goes into further detail in regards to its relation to the nation of Israel, the true children of Israel, the true people. And so we're going to talk about that today as we study Daniel chapter 8. Now we studied Daniel chapter 4, and then we skipped 5 and 6 and started in 7. And the reason we skipped 5 and 6 is because the events of chapter 7 and the events of chapter 8, as we saw, took place prior to the events of chapter 5. So after we study chapter 8, we're going to go back and look at chapter 5 and 6. Okay, after we study chapter 8, we're going to go back and look at chapter 5 and 6, and then come back again to chapter 9, because chapter 9 is a very pivotal chapter, it's one of those chapters that there's a lot of deception going on about, because Asatan knows he is exposed very brightly in chapter 9 of Daniel. So we're going to look at chapter 8 today, and we're going to look at a very important time period, which already we're at the end of that time period, but it was a long time period, and it explains a lot in terms of the true Hebrews. Now, let me just backtrack. In almost every video that I do on a Bible study, a couple of things that I always bring up. Number one thing I always bring up is the subject of justification by faith. I bring that up every video because it is the most important, in my opinion, my conviction, is the most important doctrine in the Bible. The most important doctrine in the Bible, being justified or being declared innocent through the righteousness that the Father give us through Messiah. Being declared innocent through Messiah's righteousness, and being available to receive that spirit of righteousness because of the sacrifice of Messiah for his people. Okay, the sacrifice and the receiving of that righteousness will cause us to be delivered from sin and death. Okay, you receive that perfect righteousness from the Father, and it gives you power to obey him. And that's what he wants. Fear Yah and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. He wants us to obey him more than anything. He wants us to obey him. The first commandment of all, Messiah say, is to love the Most High with all thy heart, with all thy soul, with all thy mind, and all thy strength. That's the first commandment. The second one, he said, is to love your neighbor as yourself. These two go together. He said all the law is on these two, and they go together. In other words, if you claim that you love your neighbor, but you're not obedient to the Father, you're lying. And if you claim to be obedient to the Father, but you have no love for your neighbor, you're lying. They go together. And the first one actually leads you to the second one. So when you understand the Father's true character of righteousness, when you understand his true character of righteousness and his true character of love in the true sense, you will also have a concern for your neighbor as well. You will also do that. And so we start off with that because in everything we teach, that's the most important thing that caused his people to be able to overcome sin and to render obedience to the covenant, which is all he requires of us. Fear Yah and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. The second thing I like to bring up is the true Hebrews, the awakening of the true Hebrews. Now, the true Hebrews, the true Israelite people, are the people that were enslaved in West Africa, that have come in slave ships across the Atlantic and were taken on foot over land across the Arabia, across the desert. Okay, so you had the transatlantic slave trade, and then you had the slave trade that the Muslims put on us going on the other direction. Maybe people don't talk about that, but that's also, and in fact, that slavery still exists today. Okay, that's one of the things I don't understand. A lot of my brothers are speaking against the white Jesus and against Christianity as the religion of our slave masters. And then they turn around and embrace Islam because Islam also is religion of our slave masters. Okay, but that's why we are awakening. So the true Israelite people are now awakening to who they really are. No, we were not Muslim. Malcolm X was wrong. My brother was wrong. No, Messiah was not a Muslim. Muslims come from an Arabian man named Muhammad. He was an Arab. The Bible says the Most High only showed himself to the bloodline of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Muhammad was not of that bloodline. He was an Arab. He was a Semite, but not all Semites are Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The chosen seed is from Isaac. Okay? And so, and he said, I've only showed myself to them. That's what he said. I've only showed myself to them. So without them showing him to the earth is in trouble, and which is why the earth is in trouble. Okay, so now that seed is awakening according to what the Bible told us thousands of years ago. We would awaken in the last days, in the latter days. We would awaken and come back to the Most High. Okay, we would awaken and come back to him. Matter of fact, let's start off with that. There's many. We like to use Deuteronomy. We like to use Deuteronomy that shows the awakening because it shows the curse of us going into slavery by ship, and it also shows the awakening in Deuteronomy chapter 30. But let's just use a different one today. There's other ones that Ezekiel shows it as well. Ezekiel chapter 36 shows it as well. Jeremiah chapter 30 shows it as well. Isaiah shows it in Isaiah chapter 11, Isaiah chapter 60 and 61 and 62. It shows it all over. All the prophets show it. Zechariah shows it. Zechariah shows it in Zechariah chapter 8, and Zechariah chapter 13, Zechariah chapter 14. All the prophets speak of the awakening of Israel, the true Israelite people of the bloodline of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, coming out of captivity and slavery. Okay? It doesn't speak of us owning media companies, owning Hollywood, owning the Federal Reserve. It doesn't speak of us doing that. We are in want of all things. That's what it shows us. In want of all things. Okay? Now, when you look at Hosea, which is actually right after Daniel, Hosea chapter 3. Hosea chapter 3, talking about us going into captivity and then coming out of captivity. Hosea chapter 3, beginning at verse 1. It's a short chapter. It's only 5 verses long. Hosea chapter 3, beginning at verse 1. Then said Yahweh unto me, he's talking to Hosea the prophet. He says, go yet, love a woman beloved of her friend, yet an adulteress, according to the love of Yahweh toward the children of Israel, who look to other gods and love flagons of wine. So he said, I want you to go marry a woman that we consider promiscuous. A harlot is what a promiscuous woman in the Bible is considered, a harlot. Okay, she has lovers. Okay, she's not with one man. She's with multiple men, whoever's paying, whoever's helping her. Okay. And so he said, go marry this woman, because this is how children of Israel treated me. Then he said, so I bought her to me for 15 pieces of silver and for an homer of barley and half a homer of barley. So I brought her for 15 pieces of silver and a homer and a half of barley. And I said unto her, thou shalt abide with me many days. Thou shalt not play the harlot, and thou shalt not be for another man. So will I do also be for thee. So he bought her. He bought her. And he said, because I paid for you, you don't need to go anywhere else now, because you're working for me, because I paid for you. Messiah paid for Israel. I came not, he said, but for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. The Bible says, thou shalt call his name Yahweh, for he shall save his people from their sins. Right? Notice again, this is what he's doing here. Verse 3. And I said unto her, thou shalt abide for me many days, thou shalt not play the harlot, and thou shalt not be for another man. So will I also be for thee. For the children of Israel shall abide many days. Then watch this now. For the children of Israel shall abide many days without a king, without a prince, without a sacrifice, without an image, without an ephod, and without a teraphim. After which shall the children of Israel return and seek Yahweh their Most High, and David their king, and shall fear Yahweh and his goodness in the latter days. This is where we are. Okay. David, it says also in Jeremiah chapter 30, also in Ezekiel chapter 37, that he's going to raise up David. And David's going to be king in Israel. That's going to happen. That's called the first resurrection. Okay. That's going to happen. So he said, we will be many days without a king, without a prince. Isn't that where we are? Many days. We're going to talk about the many days in Daniel chapter 8 today. Many days. In fact, it's been thousands of years, as we're going to see Daniel tell us. Thousands of years. Many days. Without a teraphim. So the whole Israelite system, as we're going to see, Daniel is going to show us, the whole Israelite system is going to be put away, going to be destroyed, so that almost is like they don't exist anymore. And something else is going to try to take their place, as we're actually seeing right now. Okay? Now, one other thing I want to show you before we go into Daniel chapter 8. The word abomination. Now, there's a couple of words in Hebrew for abomination. Okay? There's a couple of words in Hebrew for abomination. But this particular one is used both when it regards to Solomon and in Daniel regarding an abomination that maketh desolate, or abomination that causes desolation. They're using these two areas, the same word. It's the word sakat, sakat. And it's 8251 in the Hebrew, sakat, 8251. So let's take a look at sakat in 1 Kings chapter 11. 1 Kings chapter 11. Now watch, this is the word sakat. You know what sakat means? The abomination, that word sakat, it means disgusting idol. Filthy, disgusting idol. And in Daniel, it uses that same word to describe what we're going to see in Daniel chapter 8. What we're going to see in Daniel, what we actually already saw in Daniel chapter 7. And we're going to see it again in Daniel chapter 8. Okay. In 7, it was called the little horn. You're going to see what it's called, abomination, in Daniel chapter 8. Okay. So let's look at here. 1 Kings chapter 11, just to see how the word is used, so you understand the context when we look at Daniel chapter 8. Okay. So Daniel, 1 Kings chapter 11, notice what it says. Beginning at verse 1. I'm going to start at verse 1, and I'm going to go down. I'm going to go down to verse 11. Yeah. From verse 1 to verse 11, because it's also prophetic. All right. But King Solomon loved many strange women, together with the daughter of Pharaoh, women of the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Zidonians, and Hittites. Of the nations concerning which Yahweh said unto the children of Israel, ye shall not go in unto them, neither shall they come in unto you, for surely they will turn away your heart after their gods. Solomon clave unto these in love So he married the daughter of Pharaoh for political reasons. Okay. Again, I'm going to just point out on a side note, Israel and Mizraim or the Egyptians and Ethiopians, Cush, they have a long history together, and their seeds have been mingled. That is why when we looked at Isaiah chapter 19, you see the Most High chooses a chosen people also out of Egypt and also out of Ethiopia and also out of Assyria, because the seeds were mingled. Abraham's seed in Solomon, all right? And, okay, even to this day in Ethiopia, a lot of here in Washington, D.C., there's a lot of Ethiopians here. It's one of the, in the United States of America, there's two places that have the most Ethiopians in the United States. One is Washington, D.C., and the other one's Minnesota. Okay. And in Washington, D.C., you see a lot of them, they'll wear this shirt. It's called Judah, because the Ethiopians understand that their bloodline is mixed with the king of Judah. They understand it. Okay. Let's continue. Verse 3. And he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines. And his wives turned away his heart. See, many people get confused. While the Most High really did say to the Israelite people in Deuteronomy, if you have two wives, in other words, he didn't recommend that they have more than two. I know that's strange today, but they would have two wives, because a man at that time was expected to support a woman. The economy was such that the man was supposed to support the woman. There was no Social Security. There was no unemployment. So the man that had means was supposed to support the woman. It was more than just about sex, by having your pick of women. You're supporting the woman. Okay, it was a support situation. And then when a man was a king, because the king received property from the nation, so he was rich by just becoming king. He could support a lot of women, support a lot of children, and the woman wanted to have sons. Why did she want to have sons? It wasn't just to carry on the man's name, although that was important to the man. No, the woman wanted to have sons because when they got older, they would support her in her old age. That was her Social Security. So the woman wanted to have sons. Okay, so a king could have a lot of wives, not because he was just having sex with all these women. He was supporting them and supporting the children they would have for him. Okay, so he had 700 wives. Now, the problem wasn't the number of wives, although that was a crazy number. The problem was the gods of these women. That was the problem. He said they turned away his heart because they were gods from Edom, Zidonian, Hittites, Ammonites, Moabites. These are people that worship other gods, and they turned him to those other gods, just like the Most High warned in Deuteronomy. Don't go into these nations because they're going to turn you to other gods. Now, they weren't allowed to destroy Moab and Ammon or Edom. That's why the Most High warned him against them, because they weren't allowed to destroy them, because Moab and Ammon were children of Lot, and the Most High did not allow Israel to destroy them, because he said, I've given this land to Lot for possession. Same with Edom. Now, when Edom, Moab, and Ammon would come against Israel and attack on their land, they would have a problem. See? But Solomon married these people when he said, don't mess with them. They worship other gods. Okay? So now, and that's the thing today. I want to bring this up right now for y'all to understand clearly. Some people don't like it, but you know what? I can't go by what people like or dislike. I got to go by what the truth is. Today, people think, while we're on this subject, people think that, if you're in the United States, let me use the United States, and I'm going to use the UK also, because the UK is in a very similar situation as the United States in terms of the true Hebrews being there. But let me explain something to you. Many brothers that are descendants of slaves believe that all white women, right, all white women can never be Israelites, and you should never be with them. And the reason they say that is because of their skin color. It's not the skin color. You have to understand something, brethren. Yes, they're the sons of Yefet, the daughters of Yefet. That's no question. Yes, they don't have any melanin. That's correct. But it's not the skin color that makes them a problem. It's not the skin color. It wasn't the skin color of these people. Matter of fact, Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Zidonians, and Hittites were black people. They were all black people. Hittites were Hamitic. Zidonians were Hamitic. Moabites, Ammonites, and Edomites were Semitic. They were black people. Okay? It wasn't the skin color that made them the problem. It was they worshipped other gods that made them the problem. Okay? It wasn't the skin color. Skin color became an issue when the European made it an issue to try to exalt himself as the children of Japhet. That's when it became an issue. And in so doing, they cursed themselves. That's what it did. When the European made skin color an issue, he cursed himself for a number of reasons. Because the man of color, the Ados, is the true Israelite. And if you are messing with them, trying to be above them, the Most High is going to have a problem with you. And he is going to have a problem with them, number one. Number two, they don't have any melanin. Scientifically, they don't have any melanin in their system. They got Neanderthal in their system. If they don't mix with Israelites, they won't survive. And you can see their numbers diminishing. They're only 10% of the world population, and they're diminishing. Okay, it's happening. The only way they survive is if they mix with the people of color. That's the only way they survive. If they were to stay, they talk about want to stay pure Aryan, like Hitler was saying, they would destroy themselves. They cannot reproduce themselves at a rate to survive. So they curse themselves with this whole color thing. Okay, they curse themselves. So the problem with Caucasian woman is not her skin color. The problem with a Caucasian woman is if she's worshiping another god. You can have a problem with a woman black as night if she's worshiping another god. And with particular, I'm using the United States and the UK as examples. The Caucasian women in these countries have been privileged for so many centuries that it's hard for them to receive the true God. Among them, the ones that have an opportunity, the real ones that have opportunity to receive the true God, are the ones that are the poorest. The ones that have been through the hell that some of us have been through, that can understand what oppression is like, though they be Caucasian. They have a chance to come to the true God. But a lot of them, the middle class, you can't get them to worship. That's why you don't want to mess with them. And their skin color just denotes the privilege that they have enjoyed. And it's hard for them to escape that privilege. Okay, it's hard for them to escape that. All right, that's the problem. Because it'd be hard for them to come to the true Most High. See, the sons of Japhet in general, right? In general, they're used to believing that they control everything. You want to see a son of Japhet go crazy? Let him think he don't have control of something. That's the thing. Whereas us, as the children of Israel, we have never had control because we've been in captivity. We're not in control. So we learn to trust the invisible God because that's our only source of righteousness. That's our only source of justice. We're not getting justice from the people. Whereas the sons of Japhet are used to controlling everything. When they don't have control, they don't know how to act. Or at least when they perceive they don't have control. Because they don't understand the Most High. See, Nebuchadnezzar was a Hamite. He thought he had control of everything. And Daniel had to tell him, you're going to act like an animal for 7 years till you understand the Most High puts kings up and sets kings down. It ain't you. It ain't your control. Okay? And he had to eat grass for 7 years to learn that. Well, here we are at the end. It's even worse with the sons of Japhet. Nebuchadnezzar was the head of gold. Sons of Japhet all the way down to iron now. So it's hard for them to even think that there's a God that they got to trust in that has control when they don't have control. That's the problem. That's the problem. Okay? It's not their skin color. It's the situation. And it was the same here. He was worshiping the gods of these women that he had as wives. Okay? That's the problem. If he had 700 Israelite wives that worship the God of Most High, Yah, and 300 concubines, he probably wouldn't have had as much problem. Now, he have a lot of headaches. He have a lot of gray hair. But he wouldn't be worshiping other gods. But he was with all these strange women. The Bible says he loved many strange women. Let's continue. For it came to pass Verse 4, when Solomon was old, that his wives turned away his heart after other gods, and his heart was not perfect with Yahweh his God, as was the heart of David his father. For Solomon went after, watch this now. For Solomon, verse 5, 1 Kings 11:5. For Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Zidonians, and Milcom, notice what it says, the abomination of the Ammonites. And Solomon did evil in the sight of Yahweh and went not fully after Yahweh, as did David his father. Then did Solomon build a high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, in the hill that is before Jerusalem, and for Molech, the abomination of the children of Ammon. Likewise did he for all his strange wives, which burnt incense and sacrificed unto their gods. And Yahweh was angry with Solomon because his heart was turned from Yahweh, Most High of Israel, which had appeared unto him twice, and had commanded him concerning this thing, that he should not go after other gods, but he kept not that which Yahweh commanded. See, the first commandment, thou shalt have no other gods before me. See, if you're going to stay away, if you're an Israelite by blood, you're going to stay away from Caucasian women, that's the problem. You're not going to have any other gods. See, because most of them don't know the true God. Now, I'm not saying all of them. Like I said, you got among generally the poorer ones, the ones that have come through this system and been chewed up by it, they kind of get more of an insight to understand the truth than the ones that have been living in privilege all their life, right? And this is the problem. He said, you're going after, don't go after other gods. And again, I want to bring this up. This is where the image to the beast comes in, because it's another god. Nowadays, the gods, listen now. Are you hearing testing 1, 2, 3? The gods of the world right now are corporations and institutions. That's what they are. Tell me you don't understand this world is run by corporations. Corporations run this thing. And corporations are controlled by a few people who are controlled by a few people. Okay? Corporations run this thing. Controlled by a few people who are controlled by a few people. Even your churches are corporations. That's the gods of this world. And what is the problem? In the mark of the beast, the children of Israel will not worship corporations, because corporations of religious persuasion are asking you to worship a different God. That's the truth. Corporations, religious corporations, are actually having you worship another God. You're not worshiping Yah when you go and join a Baptist church. You're not worshiping Yah when you go and join a Methodist church or a Mormon church or SDA church or a Jehovah's Witness or a Catholic. You're worshiping Rome. And the Bible says that they worshiped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. And they worshiped the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make? That's the Catholic Church and the Pope, and that's the corporation of institution of Rome and Christianity. Shabbat shalom to all in the chat. I'm sorry I didn't see you all. Let's see, Sister Daniel, Brother David, Sister Isha, Sister Ruth. Shabbat shalom to all of you. Okay, let's finish here. And he had commanded him concerning this thing, that he should not go after other gods, but he kept not that which Yahweh commanded. Wherefore Yahweh said unto Solomon, for as much as this is done of thee, and thou hast not kept my covenant and my statutes, which I have commanded thee, I will surely rend the kingdom from thee, and will give it to thy servant. Now this is deep. He gave the kingdom to Jeroboam, the son of the back, northern tribe. That's where you had to split, became north and south, right? Shabbat, Junior. Shabbat shalom. And that's where you had to split, right? But on a deeper level, notice what it said in Deuteronomy chapter 32. Deuteronomy chapter 32. Notice what it said, because our fathers worship other gods. That's the most, see, that's how it starts. And that's where it begins to come back. Us turning back to the only true God, the God of our fathers, not white Jesus, not Christianity, not Islam. Our God doesn't have the name of a religion. He doesn't. He just has a name. Yah, that's his name. And he does not represent a religious institution. Listen now. He represents a nation. He represents a nation, not a religious institution. And that in itself tells you right there, whenever somebody has a name of some religion, that tells you right there, that's not you. That's not you. If you want to serve the true God, that's not you. Or if they're incorporated, like some religious corporation, that's not you. That's not you. Okay, that's not you. That's not for you. Your God, Yah, is the God of a nation that he appeared to his friend Abraham. And he said, your children are going to be my nation. I've not appeared to any other nation. That's why we're scattered. We're a scattered nation in other people's lands. Okay, watch what it says in Deuteronomy. I'm going to begin at verse, I'm in 32, chapter 32. Starting at verse 16 and go down to verse 21. They provoked our fathers, they provoked him to jealousy with strange gods. With, here it is again, abominations provoked they him to anger. They sacrificed unto devils, not to Yah, to gods whom they knew not, to new gods that came newly up, whom your fathers feared not. Of the rock that begot thee, thou art unmindful, and hast forgotten Yah that formed thee. And when Yahweh saw it, he abhorred them because of the provoking of his sons and of his daughters. And he said, I will hide my face from them. I will see what their end shall be, for they are a very froward generation, children in whom is no faith. They have moved me to jealousy with that which is not God. They have provoked me to anger with their vanities, and I will move them to jealousy with those that are not a people. I will provoke them to anger with a foolish nation. Same thing. See what he told Solomon? I'm going to make your servant rule over you. What happened to us? We used to be the head. Now we the tail. The ones that are a foolish nation rule over us. The ones that vote in orange presidents rule over us. Okay? Provoke us to jealousy from a foolish nation. And what's he trying? Because we provoked him to jealousy by worshiping another God. And now he's awakening us to come back to him. Come back to him. Rome says to all the Protestant churches, you can return home now. That's what he said. That's what Rome said. Several of their priests have told Protestant leaders that, and several of the leaders of their churches have done it. Do you know that Martin Luther, when he nailed his 95 Theses on the church door, that church became a Lutheran church for many centuries. Do you know today, right now, as I'm speaking to you, that's a Catholic church now? It's not Lutheran anymore. It's Catholic because the Lutherans have come back home to Rome. See? So Yah is calling his true people back home. He's calling his true people to Yah himself, calling him back to himself. And he's using Messiah, Mashiach, Yahweh Shah. He's using him as the sacrifice to give us his righteousness, to call us back. Like I said, my personal testimony. I met Yahweh Shah. And Yahweh Shah then turned around and say, son, brother, let me introduce you to your father, who you don't know. And it wasn't my biological father. It was my heavenly father. He said, I'm going to introduce you to him. And when he taught his disciples to pray, Messiah has disciples, people that are under his tutelage, because he's the teacher. Messiah is the teacher. And Messiah said, this is how you're going to pray. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. That's how he started. He didn't say, worship Messiah. He didn't say that. Although there's no problem, people could bow to the Messiah because he's the crown prince. He's the crown prince, right? He represents the Father, right? He said, Messiah said, this is how you pray. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Isn't that what he said? Isn't that what he said? And he told the disciples, he said, I'm going to go to my Father and I'm going to pray for you there. And he said, you could pray to your Father because the Father himself loveth you. He loves you. He told the disciples. The Father himself loves you. Pray to your Father, which is in secret. When you go to your house, go in your closet, go in secret, private, and pray to your Father in secret. And your Father that seeth in secret shall reward you openly. It's beautiful, man. It really is. So he wants us to come back. But what we see here is these false gods were called abominations, sakat, filthy, disgusting idols. That's the translation, literal translation. Filthy, disgusting idols. Because our God is a jealous God. He's jealous. He don't want us worshiping any other God. And he's awakening us now. This awakening that we're now in, and this it's corresponding also with the seal of the 144,000. This awakening and corresponding seal, and the seal, brethren, it accomplishes two things. It accomplishes multiple things, but two things. The Messiah is saying, seal the law among my disciples. It brings us back to his law. Remember what he said in Malachi. He said, remember ye the law of Moses, my servant, with the statute and judgment. Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the great and dreadful day of Yahweh come. What does that mean? That means Elijah the prophet is a representation of the 144,000. The 144,000 are leading the people back to the covenant. Remember ye the law of Moses, which I taught him in Oreb, all Israel with the statutes and judgment. Okay? And so that's their job. Moses represents the giving of the covenant. Okay? Elijah represents the translated people that are not going to see death, people that are prophet of like Elijah in the last days, to awaken the children of Israel to the only true God, their God. And those that are interested on planet Earth in coming to righteousness, though you be not of the bloodline. If you're interested in coming to righteousness, there's but one God to serve. Yeah. No, you can't join the church. It's not a church. You're becoming part of a nation, a scattered nation, because that's what Israel is. So now we see abomination, right? Abomination. Now let's go to Daniel chapter 8. Daniel chapter 8. So we did 7. We saw the little horn. Okay. Now we're going to go to 8. We're going to see the little horn again, but this time he's going to be in a different form. He's going to be shown. He's going to come start as a horn, but he's going to be in a different form. We're going to see it right now. Okay. Daniel chapter 8. Okay. Beginning at verse 1. Daniel chapter 8, beginning at verse 1. In the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me, even unto me, Daniel, after that which appeared unto me at the first. So now he says he's in the 3rd year of Belshazzar, and he said he saw a vision after he had seen another vision before that. That vision he saw before was chapter 7, where he said, in the 1st year of Belshazzar, I had a dream and visions. Okay, and that's chapter 7. So now chapter 8, in the 3rd year of Belshazzar, 2 years later, he said, a vision appeared to me. And he said, this is different. He said, this is like a vision that appeared to me before. This is another one. Okay. Verse 2. And I saw in a vision, and it came to pass when I saw that I was at Shushan in the palace, which is in the province of Elam. And I saw in a vision, and I was by the river Ulai. Okay. He's by a river. It's called Ulai. Okay. He's in a palace. So apparently, this palace was either built near a river or around a river. You know, it's like a river might have flowed through. That wasn't unusual. Babylon did have a situation like that, a river flowing through. This was Belshazzar, king of Babylon, so he had a river flowing through the city. So it could have definitely been going through the palace as well. So he said he was by a river. He was at the palace. Okay. Then I lifted up my eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram, which had 2 horns, and the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last. I am going to try my best, by the grace of the Most High, to be very deliberate as we study this. I'm not going to rush through this. This is important to us today. Okay? Our history, knowing who we are, is important. If you don't know who you are, you're going to be a most confused individual. Understanding who you are and where your place is in history and where your history began helps you right now. Not only that, the information helps us understand what's coming when we understand how we got here, who we are. Okay? Understanding who you are as an individual, where your history, who's your history, where does it come from? Helps you understand everything around you when you understand who you are. Okay? So here he said he saw a ram. That's an animal, right? And the rams generally have two horns, right? He said, but this one, it had two horns, and one horn was higher than the other one. He said the horns were high, and one was higher. And he said the higher of the two horns came up out the head last. So this one came up, and then another one came up, and it came up higher than the first one. So he had two horns, and they were crooked, and one of the horns was higher than the other one. Okay. And verse 4, I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward, so that no beast might stand before him, neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand, but he did according to his will and became great. Okay, so this ram, notice what it said? It said he pushed westward, he pushed northward, okay, and he pushed southward, which is telling you he's coming from east. He's coming from the east, and he's pushing north, and he's pushing west, and he's pushing south. He's coming from the east. Okay, this ram. And he had two horns. Now, let's go and let's find out who they are. Verse 20. We're going to come right back because I'm going to let this interpret itself here. So verse 20. The ram which thou sawest having two horns are the kings of Media and Persia. That's verse 20 of Daniel chapter 8. So this ram represented the kings of Media and Persia. This is the beginning of the Japhetic powers. Medes, Japhet. Persians, Japhet. This is the beginning of their powers. Okay. We already saw that Nebuchadnezzar was a Hamite. Babylon is Hamitic. And he represented the last Hamitic world empire. And now the kings of Medes and the Persians come. It's a different scene now. And then he said the Medes were first, but then the Persians came after, and they were higher. All right. So, and he said they became great. They became great. Let's go back to verse 5. And I was considering, and as I was considering, behold, an he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth and touched not the ground. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. So he's looking at this two-horned ram that was in the east. And as he's looking at the ram, a male goat is coming from the west. And he's coming so fast, his feet are not even touching the ground. It's almost as if he got a running start and leaped. And he was coming, and he had a big horn in the middle of his head. His head is down, and he's coming from the east, and he's covering the whole earth. At that time, it's good for us to know the earth represented the Middle East, North Africa, India, Southern Europe. Okay, that was the whole earth at that time. So here he comes. He's coming from the west. He's coming to where Elam was, Elam in the west. That is what we call today Iraq. Okay, Iran was the Persians, and then north of them, the Medes, was what you call like what was once part of the USSR. But you had Georgia, Belarus, all them places. They come in. That's your east. That's your Eastern European mixing with the what we call today Iranian, and they come and taking over. Okay. And then now they sat in the east, and coming from the west of them is this goat, a male goat with a big horn in the head, and he's coming fast. He's coming fast. Okay, let's take a look. Verse 6. He had a notable horn between his eyes, and he came to the ram that had two horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran into him in the fury of his power. So that male goat collided with the ram. The male goat collided with the ram and was a violent collision. No, this is not a Knicks live video. This is not a Knicks live video. I actually don't, for the Knicks fans, I don't do live video on the Knicks. It's always an upload. So you'll know if you see me live, it's not Knicks. It's not Knicks. Just to let you know, it's not Knicks. Knicks are always upload. Live is always Bible study. So this is a live one. Yes, just to let you know. So where was I? Okay. So he came to the ram that had two horns, standing before the river, and ran into him in the fury of his power. So there was a collision where the he-goat, coming so fast he wasn't even touching the ground, from the west smashed into the ram with the two horns, smashed into him. Okay. Verse 7. And I saw him come close unto the ram, and he was moved with choler. Choler is anger and fury. That's what choler means. He was moved with choler. That's anger and fury against him, and smote the ram and brake his two horns. And there was no power in the ram to stand before him, but he cast him down to the ground and stamped upon him, and there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. Therefore the he-goat waxed very great. So the ram was great, but the he-goat was very great. What that is saying to us is that there's more territory. So in other words, the ram had a lot of territory, Medes and Persians. But the he-goat took all the ram's territory and increased and made more territory. The he-goat. Who is the he-goat? Verse 21. Daniel chapter 8, verse 21. And he called him in verse 21. And the rough goat, that's the one, he's a roughneck. And the rough goat is the king of Grecia. And the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. So that when Greece became a world power, the king that became, the guy that became king, that led them, that led the armies, was a young boy that first started leading armies at age 19. It's called Alexander. And they called him Alexander the Great. And he extended his kingdom, and he went into Kemet, which is now called Egypt. And he named that city Alexandria. And the Greeks went down into Alexandria and into Hamitic land of Egypt, Mizraim, and found all the education and secrets that they had no knowledge of before that. They took away secrets of publishing, of medicine, of poetry, of philosophy, worship. They took all that stuff out of Kemet and brought it back to them, to Greece, to Athens. Okay. Then they started having all this stuff in Athens. And so that's what they stole it. They discovered it in North, what we call North Africa. Okay, they discovered it. All right. So the he-goat waxed very great. Shabbat shalom. And when he was strong, the great horn was broken, verse 8, for it came up four notable ones toward the four winds of heaven. So let's look at verse 22. Let's look at verse 21 and 22 again and get the meaning of these two. And the rough goat is the king of Grecia, and the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. Now that being broken, whereas four stood up for it, four kingdoms shall stand up out of the nation, but not in his power. What does that mean? So Alexander the Great he was the emperor, he was the king of Greece, and which was the king of the earth at that time. He expanded the geographic territory of the kingdom, but he died at age 32. He was dead. Okay, people say he drank himself to death. There's different stories. He drank himself to death, or somebody poisoned him, but he died. Okay, and he had children, but his generals killed them all and took over the kingdom. He had four main generals: Lysimachus, Cassandra, which ended up ruling the east part of the kingdom and the west part of the kingdom; Seleucus, which ruled out of the north; and Ptolemy, which rules out of the south. These four generals divided the kingdom that Alexander had conquered between the four of them. Okay, north, south, east, and west. All right, that's Seleucus and Ptolemy. Seleucus being the north, Ptolemy being the south, became all four of them were fighting each other for power. But the two survivors that ended up ruling was Seleucus and Ptolemy, north and south. Okay, so now as we go through Daniel, when we get into chapter 11 especially, you're going to see an emphasis on those two, the king of the north and the king of the south. You're going to get an emphasis on those two. Okay, we're going to talk about that as we get there, but it starts here. So you had the division of the Greek Empire into four divisions, and then you had Seleucus, and you had Ptolemy ending up being the survivors, the ones that ended up ruling the then known world after the death of Alexander the Great. Okay, let's look at verse 8 again, and then we'll go to verse 9, which is starting really what we're coming here for now. Therefore, the he-goat waxed very great. And when he was strong, the great horn was broken. And for it came up four notable ones toward the four winds of heaven, like we said, north, south, east, and west. Okay, watch verse 9. And out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceeding great toward the south, and toward the east, and toward the pleasant land. Now, the pleasant land, also sometimes called the glorious land, is Israel. And this was west. This represents the west of the then known world. When you're looking at the Middle East, so-called, you have the north, south, east, and west. On the western part of it is what we call Israel, right? So he said, this little horn, so he obviously came out the north, and we know from chapter 7, it came out of Rome. Okay, we know from chapter 7 it came out of Rome. So this little horn come out of Rome, waxed exceeding great toward the south, toward the east, and toward the pleasant land. Now, right here, verse 9 is covering a lot of time. It's covering centuries. Okay, it's covering centuries because as we saw in Daniel chapter 7, there was the beast that was iron and it had 10 horns, but then the little horn came up and knocked down 3. And it was different than the other ones because it became religious. So you had the Roman Empire, which was started by the Caesars, right? They were run by the Caesars, the various Caesars, right? You had Julius, and you had Octavius, and you had Augustus, and then you had Caligula. You had Diocletian, different Caesars, and people related to them that were fighting for the kingdom. But then later on, it became a religious power rose out of that from Constantine, the emperor. Okay, in the 4th century, Constantine. So it actually starts off like this here. A beard. Does the beard make me holy, brother? Does the beard make me righteous? Does hair on my face make me righteous? Does it? Does hair on my face cause me to obey the covenant more? Does hair on my face mean I'm obedient or disobedient? Why are you asking about hair on my face? It's not a command. I'm not convicted that it's a command. Show me where it's a command. I see where people wore beards and they were told how to cut them, but it's never a command to wear a beard. There's a difference. It is not a command. Now, if you want to wear one, you go ahead and wear one. I don't like hair on my face. And I don't see a commanding me to put hair on my face. I see what he told people at the time how to cut their beard, but it's not a command to wear a beard. Please look at that more closely before you judge me for not having hair on my face. Okay? Daniel chapter 8. Out of one of them, verse 9, came forth a little horn, which waxed exceeding great toward the south and toward the east and toward the pleasant land. And it waxed great. Now this, like I said, it covers many centuries, and it goes from Rome as a pagan political power to Rome as the little horn, a religious political power, which is still pagan, but now it's religious. And the thing that makes it notable, as we saw in Daniel chapter 7, notice Daniel chapter 7, we saw it says in Daniel 7, I'm going to start at verse 23. Daniel 7:23, and go down from Daniel 7:23 and go down to verse 25. Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon the earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down and break it in pieces. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall rise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first, and shall subdue three kings. And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of time. So This little horn, what makes it distinct is that it wears out the saints of the Most High. It speaks directly against the Most High. And it tries to change the laws of the Most High. This is what makes this one different. Okay? Because remember what the scriptures say. Notice again, Zechariah chapter 2. Zechariah chapter 2. Zechariah chapter 2. I'm going to begin Zechariah chapter 2 from verse 5 down to verse 8. Zechariah chapter 2 from verse 5 to verse 8. Notice what it said. For I, saith Yahweh, will be unto her a wall of fire round about, and will be the glory in the midst of her. Ho, ho, come forth, and flee from the land of the north, saith Yahweh. For I have spread you abroad as the four winds of heaven, saith Yahweh. Deliver thyself, O Zion, that dwellest with the daughter of Babylon. For thus saith Yahweh of hosts, after the glory he has sent me unto the nations which spoiled you. For he that toucheth you, talking about Israel, touches the apple of his eye. And this is what brings the attention of the Most High to this little horn, because he's putting his hand on Yah's chosen people. Okay. And in fact, it was the Vatican of Rome working with the Ashkenazis combined, or the Ashkenazis working for them, combined to enslave us and put us in chains. Okay. They did it at first the Portuguese, the Spanish, the French, the English, the Dutch. They did it at the command of Rome, or with the blessing of Rome. Okay, the Ashkenazis that say they are Jews and are not, they insured and owned the ships. These are the people that were not a people that the Most High had punished us and put us into slavery. Okay, Daniel chapter 8. Let's start again at verse 9 and go down to verse 10, because now we're talking about the Roman Catholic Church, the Vatican, the office of the Pope. I say the office of the Pope because it's not one particular Pope, it's an office. Okay, whoever's in the office is an abomination, because the whole system is an abomination. Okay, and I'm not describing it that way. Watch, the Bible describes it that way. And out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceeding great toward the south, toward the east, toward the pleasant land. And it waxed great, even to the host of heaven. And it cast down some of the hosts and of the stars to the ground and stamped upon them. What does that mean? Stamped upon Israel. Stamped upon Israel's prophets, stamped upon Israel's law, stamped upon Israel's economy, stamped upon Israel's temple, stamped upon Israel's city, stamped upon everything, upon Judah, and sent us into captivity. According to why? Because we worshiped other gods. That's why. Because we worshiped other gods. That's why. Okay? Again, when you know who you are by your history, you understand where you are right now. And if you have that understanding and you're on that solid ground, the Most High can lead you into the future. When you don't know who you are, anybody can lead you. Anybody can deceive you. And we talked about this the other night. This earth at this time is built on lies. Everything you're seeing that's established is established upon a lie. There is no such thing on this earth as a kingdom or a nation established on righteousness. They all are deceiving people into saying, George Washington, I can never tell a lie. George Washington owned slaves. Thomas Jefferson owned slaves. When they wrote the Constitution, they did not intend that people that were African descendants of slaves would be considered men. All men to create equal. They did not consider us men. And they, you know what? Quiet as kept, they still don't. Why do you think the black male is public enemy number one? That's the truth about it. And again, a lot of people can't handle that truth, but that's the truth. And there's a reason for it. And the way we're going to get out of this is by returning to our God. Yeah. Returning to him. Okay? Doesn't matter what country we're in. We are a nation. We just scattered. Daniel chapter 8. So he cast some of the stars and stamped them to the ground. Verse 11. Yet he magnified himself even to the prince of the host. And by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down. Let's talk about this. When it's talking about a daily sacrifice, it's meaning two things, but one particular thing. Only one people on the planet Earth did the Most High instruct to set up a sanctuary. Only one. He never instructed any other people on planet Earth to set up a sanctuary. Okay, again, let's look at Exodus chapter 25. Exodus chapter 25. Exodus 25. I'm going to begin at verse 1 and read down to verse 8. Exodus chapter 25, from verse 1 to verse 8. I'm going to go actually to verse 9. From 1 to 9. Exodus chapter 25. And Yahweh spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, that they bring me an offering. Of every man that giveth it willingly with his heart, ye shall take my offering. And this is the offering which ye shall take of them: gold and silver and brass, and blue and purple and scarlet and fine linen, and goat's hair, and ram skins dyed red, and badger skins and shittim wood, oil for the light, and spices for the anointing oil, and for sweet incense, onyx stones, and stones to set in the ephod, and in the breastplate. In verse 8, and let them make me a sanctuary, that I may dwell among them. He has never commanded anybody to do that, before or since. According to all that I show thee, after the pattern of the tabernacle, and the pattern of all instruments thereof, even so shall ye make it. What pattern? Well, Hebrews tells us the pattern that was given to Moses in Exodus chapter, in when he was in Mount Sinai, is the pattern of the original that's in the third heaven. And he was told to tell the children to make a model of that, what he was shown. No other people. Now, that sanctuary, that model that was made, they had sacrifices every day, in the morning and in the evening. Okay? In the morning and in the evening. All right? Bro, I said to you already, there is no command to wear a beard. There's no command to wear a beard. I already showed you that. And if you show me a command that says thou shalt wear a beard, okay, I do that. I have no problem. But I'm telling you, I've read through the Bible multiple times, cover to cover. There is no command to wear a beard. There's just a command how to trim a beard. That's it. There's no command to wear one. Why are you wasting my time? I'm trying to teach prophecy, and you're wasting my time about hair on my face. Can you please stop? I'm asking you kindly. Okay? Which is, well, let me tell you something else then. Sisters should never be trying to teach brothers that are teachers. You should know that, since you know about beards. Okay? Sisters should never be trying to teach a brother that's a teacher. All right? So now go read that. That's 1 Timothy. 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 6. Go read that one, please. Okay. Daniel chapter 8, verse 11. Yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host. By him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down. So let me go back over this again. I'm sorry, I let myself get this. That's why Sister Isha, see, now you see what I'm saying? I can't be looking over there, because people try, the devil bring people to distract me. Here you got a woman trying to teach me. Okay. Daniel chapter 8. So, the abomination that maketh desolate, the Bible said he took away the daily sacrifice. What does that mean? What does that mean? It means the two times a day, Israel was to make a sacrifice. The word daily means, in the Hebrew, it's continual, the continual sacrifice. There was a morning sacrifice around 6 a.m. and there was an evening sacrifice around 6 p.m. Every day, 2 sacrifices a day in Israel for the nation. Okay, for the nation. Okay, so now that was taken away. How was it taken away? 2 times, twofold it was taken away. Let me explain. First of all, let me make sure we get back. Heavenly Father, praise your name, praise your spirit, praise Messiah Yahushua. Guide us in your word that your name will be glorified. In the name of the Messiah, how shall we pray? Amen. Okay. So, brothers and sisters, so now there's two ways that the daily sacrifice was taken away. Again, I just want to stress, as we already saw in Exodus chapter 28, that the sanctuary was given to Israel, only to Israel. There was no other nation given instructions to build a sanctuary. He said, I do not dwell in temples made with hands. He told David that. And so he did not give anybody else any instructions. So anytime you see any churches built by somebody's hands and they claim this is the house of the Lord, that's not true. There's only one house of Yah, and it was destroyed. 70 AD was the last time it was destroyed. And with the temple, the whole city of Jerusalem, and that's when we started going into captivity that we're in right now. Okay, that started. It was declared by Daniel's prophecy in Daniel chapter 9, and we went into this, and they're going to see it here in Daniel 8, and we went into captivity. And the sanctuary was destroyed, which means the daily sacrifice was destroyed. The city was destroyed. That's the first thing. Second thing, since this sacrifice was only given to Israel, it was a part of the Israelite nation, part of their command from the Most High. Now, Messiah became the sacrifice. Okay, Messiah became the sacrifice. All right, and later on, when Constantine created Christianity, and then after Constantine created it in the 4th century, in 508 AD, in the 6th century, there was a proclamation made in Europe by the King of France. And he said that the Bishop of Rome is the corrector of all heretics. In other words, the king's decree said that all religion in Rome is run by the Bishop of Rome, which is the Pope. That was the establishment of what we now have as the Catholic Church. And by that, they took away Israel as the true people. They became what the Bible called later the hidden ones, right? Called the hidden ones. Look, notice again, Psalms 83. Psalm 83. Psalm 83 from verse 1 down to verse 3. Psalm 83 from 1 to 4. Notice what it says. Psalm 83, 1 through 4. Keep not thou silence, O Yah. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O Yah. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, come, and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more remembered. So when the abomination that maketh desolate was set up, when the abomination that maketh desolate was set up, and when the abomination that maketh desolate was set up, and Christianity came, Israel was taken off the scene. It was as if we didn't exist. And as the awakening is now, prior to now, here in the United States and in UK, very few people over the last 100, maybe you'll be seeing some over the last 150 years, but prior to that, you didn't hear about people understanding who the Israelites was. Here and there. But generally speaking, people thought it was all about Christianity, all about the Catholic Church, and then all about the Protestant Reformation. Never more about Israel. Okay? We were the hidden ones. And now we're awakening in these last days. We're awakening now. Okay? And now, that's why he said the daily sacrifice was taken away. That's representing Israel. Israel was taken away, and Christianity was set up. Y'all see that? So Israel was taken away, and then they went further. At first, the Catholic Church understood that the Messiah was a Hebrew, and they had him painted different paintings of a brown Hebrew Messiah. But then they got really bold, and they changed him to a Caucasian man. Okay, they made him in their image. That's what happened. Okay, and then they made him in their image, and they pushed that image on us so that we would revere them. That's what happened. Prophecy. Okay, so he magnified himself to the prince of the host, that is above Messiah, And by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down. See, the place of his sanctuary was cast down. Okay, the place of his sanctuary was cast down. That means the Israelites were out of their place, and not only that, the most holy place in the third heaven, where Messiah is interceding for us, was hidden from us. Was hidden from us. Even to this day, there are many Israelites that don't know Messiah is the high priest, that don't understand what that means to us. They don't understand it to this day. So, and that's what I'm saying. The place of his sanctuary was cast down. The order, the foundation of the sanctuary of Yah, the foundation of the daily sacrifice, the foundation of the economy of Israel was cast down. Okay, this is prophecy. So now he's telling Daniel's being shown that the Israelite nation will be seen to be pushed off the scene by an abomination, a false religion that's a disgusting religion according to the Most High. Okay, let's continue. We're going to make this in two parts, but we're going to start one part here. A host was given against the daily sacrifice by reason of transgression, and they cast down the truth to the ground, and it practiced and prospered. So as we have seen, has not Christianity practiced and prospered at our expense? Have we not seen this? Okay, practice and prosper. Then I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said to that certain saint which spake, how long shall be the vision concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden underfoot? So so Daniel is watching. He's in vision. He sees a ram, a goat, right? He sees the goat have a horn breaks, and 4 horns come up, and out of one comes a little horn, like he saw in Daniel 7, a little horn. And he sees the little horn try to take the place of Messiah. And he sees this person try to take the place of Israel, like he saw in Daniel 7. He shall think to change times and law. Now he's saying he cast down the daily sacrifice. He cast the stars to the ground. He cast the saints down. Okay, and he practiced and prospered. That must be driving Daniel crazy, to see somebody that's obviously representing Asatan practice and prosper over his people, right? As it would do any of us, right? So now he sees 2 angels. He sees 2 angels talking to each other, and one asked the other, "How long are we going to allow this to happen?" Verse 13. And I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said to that certain saint which spake, how long shall be the vision concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden underfoot? How long? How long is this going to go on for? How long are you going to let this happen? Notice the powerful answer that's given in verse 14. Okay, we're going to stop here for tonight because I'm going to spend a little time right now on this one. Okay, verse 14. And he said unto me, unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. This is a deep. The cleansing of the sanctuary for Israel is the Day of Atonement. The Day of Atonement outlined in Leviticus chapter 16. That's the cleansing of the sanctuary. What does that mean? Okay, so let's stop right here and talk about this for a minute. In the Israelite economy, there was a high priest of the sons of Aaron. Okay, Aaron's sons. Well, one of them was chosen as a high priest, a descendant of Aaron. Every day, as I said, 2 times a day, at 6 o'clock in the morning approximately, and at 6 o'clock in the evening, there was a sacrifice made for the nation. This is aside from the sacrifice of offerings, of sin offerings, of people would bring offerings when they sinned or when they felt bad or they wanted to repent. It was aside from all that. This was for the nation, twice a day. So the nation could confess their sins as people twice a day. Okay, morning and evening sacrifice. Every day, this happened all year. Then, as we just finished acknowledging just a few weeks ago, in the 7th month, in the first day of the month, there was a blowing of trumpets. Okay, it was blowing of trumpets, a day of blowing of trumpets. They made it into a Sabbath. It was not a feast. And they fasted, and they were preparing for what was to come 10 days later on the 10th day of the month, which was the Day of Atonement. On the Day of Atonement, the high priest went into the most holy place of the sanctuary, that Moses was told to make. The high priest went into the most holy place in the sanctuary. Now, the sanctuary had an outer court where they made the sacrifices twice a day on the altar of brass. Then you go into a room, and in that there's two rooms. But the first room you walk into, there's a table with showbread on your right. On your left, there's 7 candlesticks. There's a thick curtain in front of you. And then right before, in front of that thick curtain, there's incense burning. An altar with incense burning. Every day, with those 2 sacrifices, the priest would go into that place to pray for the nation with the blood of the animals. But once a year, on the Day of Atonement, he would not only have the blood of the animals, but he would bring an incense and put it on an instrument, and he'd bring that with the blood, and he'd go through that curtain once a year. Before he did that, he had to make sure that he confessed his sin for him and his family. Because if he didn't, he would die going into that second room. So he offered for himself first, and then he offered for the whole nation. Then he went through that veil, into the second room. In the second room, there's an ark. In other words, like we would call it a box. And it has a top over the box. The top of the box has 2 angels made out of gold. And they're facing each other. And they're both looking down over the box. The box is called the Ark of the Covenant. In that box, the main thing, 2 tables of the covenant, commonly referred to as the 10 Commandments. Between those 2 angels was a spirit of glory, which represented the Most High. Once a year, the high priest would enter there with his sins and the sins of the people. And all the sins that have been confessed twice a day, every day, all year, were stored up there and were taken out of there. That's what it's called, cleansing. It was spiritually dirty because of all the sins that Israel committed and confessed. Those sins were spiritually taken out with the high priest after he confessed for himself and the nation. And the sins of the nation were taken out of the sanctuary and forgiven and placed on the head of a goat that was called the scapegoat. And those sins were placed on that goat's head. That goat was led out into the wilderness and left out there. Okay? That is the Day of Atonement. In the third heaven right now, there is no need, the Bible tells us in Hebrews chapter 9 and chapter 10, there is no need for a blood sacrifice. Messiah himself is the sacrifice. And this verse just told us 2,300 days. That's 2,300 years, because in Bible prophecy, a day is a year. 2,300 years were going to go by, and in heaven, in the third heaven, the Messiah was going to bring his own blood with the incense of the saints. That's why in Revelation chapter 4, you see the 24 elders, and they have incense in their hand. And the Bible says the incense represents the prayers of the saints. He goes in before the Father, and he cleanses the heavenly sanctuary of the sins of his people. Now, when the priest comes out and he places the sins on the head of that goat, the sins of the nation are gone. They did it every year. But when Messiah does it, he's doing it once. Or should I say, as we're going to find out, he already did it once. And it's for the sins of the nation. It's called the Day of Atonement, because at the end of the day, he come out. It's one day. Now, in Bible prophecy, that's 1 year. So when Messiah went into the most holy place in the third heaven, he was only supposed to stay there 1 year, but he's still there. He's lingering in there. Why is he lingering in there? Why hasn't he come out? Because when he come out 5 days later in the Israelite economy, the 15th day of the 7th month, which we just finished, is the Feast of Tabernacles, otherwise known as the Feast of Ingathering. And for 7 days, for the first days of Sabbath and the 8th days of Sabbath, the 7 days, they're partying, That's where you can bring strong drink. Bible say wine, strong drink. Bring your deer meat. Bring your flesh. He said, and share it with your brethren and party. He said, you're gonna rejoice before your house for a week. Okay, it's a party. It's a feast. That happens 5 days after the Day of Atonement. Prophetically, 5 years. So Messiah was supposed to spend a year in the third heaven. And then 5 years later, he was supposed to come back here and get us. But there was a delay. He's still in there. He hasn't come out yet. Why hasn't he come out yet? We're going to continue in chapter 8 by the grace of the Most High tomorrow, but I want to just get you to the area that shows you why he didn't come out yet, why he's still there. What's the delay? So everything's prepared. He's already been given the kingdom. He's been given the book. He opened it up. He's in the 6th seal now. He's about to open the 7th one, and it's all over. Well, that's when he's coming out. Why is he delayed? Revelation chapter 6 from verse 12 into Revelation chapter 7 and verse 4. Revelation chapter 6 and verse 12 into Revelation chapter 7 and verse 4. And I beheld when he had opened the 6th seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood, and the stars of heaven fell unto the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind. And the heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places, and the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and every bondman, and every freeman hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains, and said unto the mountains and rocks, fall on us, and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand? And after these things, I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. Now watch verse 2. And I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God. And he cried with a loud voice to the 4 angels to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea. So you have an angel with a seal in his hand. He's come down from the east to seal somebody. He didn't do it. And so he's rising back up from the east with the seal in his hand. And as he's leaving, he's calling out to 4 angels who have been commanded to hold back destructive power that's going to come on the whole planet Earth. He's commanding them something, saying with a loud voice, verse 3, saying, hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees. When? Till we have sealed the servants of our God in their foreheads. So the only thing stopping Messiah from leaving the most holy place and putting an end to this whole situation is the seal of his servants. Verse 4. And I heard the number of them which were sealed, and there were sealed 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel. Everything's in place. Father is ready. Messiah already knows when he's supposed to come back. He's waiting as he's working on the sealing of the 144,000. That is the last thing that needs to take place. That is it. Okay, that is it. That is the last thing that needs to take place. Everything else is already in place, already happening, already determined. Messiah's already been given the kingdom. He's already been given it to him. Okay, it's academic now. Now it's just the seal of the 144,000. That's why there's a delay. And that was a 2,300-year period in the making. And we are at the end. That's where we are. Okay, so we're going to continue in Daniel chapter 8 tomorrow, talking more about this 2,300 days. Okay, we're going to stop here for the evening. And I pray that the Most High will seal you for his kingdom. That when that angel is back here now with that seal, that he places it on your forehead. And that you and your family be prepared to meet Messiah Praise the Most High. Shalom.